Everybody please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Well, thank everybody for being with us today on this December 17th, 2019 meeting. This will be the last one of 2019. Does any member of council have a conflict of interest or an appearance of a conflict of interest with anything on our agenda today? If so, please state at this time.
No.
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 Give me 1 second to get straightened out. I'm gonna go ahead. Show you all right for a second. All right, the amendment and approval of the draft agenda. Got it? Amendment and approval of draft agenda.
I don't have anything to add.
Anybody have anything to add?
I don't have anything.
Nobody? Everybody good?
Everybody's good.
All right. Council discussions? Nobody has anything?
None for me.
All right, public comments on agenda items only. Everybody's off quiet today.
Moving right along.
Moving right along. First up, old business, our dredging project, beach sand placement. Mr. Robert Neal's here. You have the floor, sir. Good morning.
No.
Good morning, good morning, council.
Good morning.
What I have before you is a continuation from last meeting, and I appreciate the opportunity to come back, talk about this, but it's a proposal to move the beach placement site during the negotiation with the property owners, during the commenting period for the permit. We're noticing that there's a large volume of property owners that seem unwilling to even think about sand placement. I believe that we did not get out in front of some ideas or contingencies. We were not, but we're seeing, due to the volume of comments coming in and the nature of the comments, we feel that it would be easier to, at this point, to move the beach placement site to Ocean Isle Beach. Plus, Ocean Isle Beach has made a comment in pertaining to the permit that they are concerned of erosion. I don't believe there's any, I think that's just a comment that they put in just for safety, just for a placeholder. I don't believe there's any risk of erosion. Their engineer, Ocean Isle Beach's engineer, does not believe there's any risk of additional erosion. However, by placing sand on Ocean Isle Beach, we self-mitigate for that potential erosion. At least that is our hope. That we would erase that comment, or that would be addressing their comment by placing that sand over there. They have stated they would not financially contribute to the project for sand placement on Ocean Isle Beach. They would do in-kind work, such as obtaining easements and whatever else needed to be done for in-kind work. They would not necessarily write a check to Sunset Beach, but they would be willing to do in-kind work. But at this point, we believe it would be an easier process, instead of placing sand on Sunset Beach, to move it to Ocean Isle Beach. In order to do that, there is additional field work that is required, sediment testing and surveys per the North Carolina Administrative Code. Also in this proposal is we did not scope out, we did not anticipate the Corps of Engineers requiring an individual permit. In that individual permit process, they have collected comments from individuals, the public, essentially. And we are required to address those. And although there's 198 comments, they're mostly the same. It's a very, so it's a lot of the same answers, but the formatting and just addressing those comments is a process. So in this proposal, we're asking for authorization to do that work, and also additional project coordination as this project continues to move forward. But I'm happy to address questions if there's any. But the total cost is $56,594. We expect the work to be done within 6 months, and it is eligible for the Water Resources Development Grant. 2/3 would be reimbursed. 2/3 of the cost would be reimbursed to the town.
Mr. Mayor,
Yes, Councilman. Councilwoman.
I have some questions.
Go ahead.
The property owners, the owners that you're talking about the west end of Ocean Isle Beach, is that correct?
It would be within the first 5,000 feet of Ocean Isle Beach, yes.
On the west end?
On the west
On the
end.
west end,
Yeah, okay.
not the east end, as was proposed originally.
No, we always anticipated within 5,000 feet of the inlet. We don't want to pump it that any further than that.
But at the very beginning of this, it was my understanding that the sand was going to go to the east end of Ocean Isle.
We anticipated using sediment data from the east end. Ocean Isle Beach in the past, my understanding, they have been able to use sediment data from the east end of the island to classify the west end material. We are not privileged to that same process. They are holding us to the letter of the law. We always, pumping it to the east end would be costly. I want to keep it on the west end within 5,000 feet of the
I
inlet.
understand that's what you want to do now, but that's not the original proposal, was to put it at the east end of Ocean Isle Beach, as I understood the proposal from the very beginning.
Okay, I would go back and look at that. I'd be happy to look at that, but we wanted to keep it as close to the inlet to reduce transfer costs as possible.
Okay, I have another question. At the last meeting, you said that it was your era, that we've already done sand analysis. Now we need to do sand analysis again. Why should we pay the cost of that when it was Moffitt and Nichols' era?
And in that, perhaps I should clarify that statement. My error was that the easements would be a permit condition. We always understood we'd need at least temporary construction easements to place sand on Sunset Beach. Did not anticipate that being a permit condition, but that it was always a condition of the project. And so I do, and the reason I brought that up is because at the meeting previous, we had had a discussion, you and I, and I had stated that it was not a permit condition, and so I wanted to, on record, clarify that I was wrong, that it is a permit condition for easements. Temporary construction easements were always required because we're going on someone else's property to do construction. So I wanted, that's the intent of that clarification, was that the meeting before I had misspoke to you.
These properties at the west end of Ocean Isle Beach, you feel certain you will be able to get consent from those property owners?
I believe we will. We will have to, I mean, it's going to be discussions with the town. We've started those discussions. We do not have confirmation. They have said they would take the sand before. The mayor specifically said they would take the sand, but she does not have the property owner's authorization either.
If I may, real quick, isn't that part of their work though, that they're contributing? If we were to pump to Ocean Isle Beach, it's up to them to secure those easements
Yes,
and agreements?
yes.
So
My question that ties directly into this is, you know, we went through and did the survey on Sunset Beach without first getting the approvals, particularly of the property owners, before we did that. I think we should have something very firm and a solid commitment from OIB before we go and do any surveying
Absolutely.
over there. I
Totally
mean,
agree with that.
That should all be cleared.
Yes.
Mr. Mayor,
And
can I
that's
make a
built into
comment?
your timeline?
Yes.
Excuse me. Okay.
Councilman Bourne, go ahead.
So if the analysis of the sand compatibility fails, what would be the impact of that? Would we still be paying for that analysis?
We would, yes, the town would still be paying for it. It's almost impossible for it not to pass the North Carolina, the standards, but yes, the town would, if it failed, yes, the town
Would
would.
the grant still be in
Yes.
place?
Yes.
Okay. The objections by the property owners here on Sunset Beach was for the placement of the sand only?
Yes.
So if we found locations that were other than those locations between Fifth and 12th Street, would there be a problem with us locating it further west?
No.
Even with the pipes going by?
That's
Across
my
people's
question.
property
yes,
during
putting
the
the
winter
pipeline,
season?
yes. There were further west, yeah, I'm sorry, directions. Yes, if we're placing a pipeline across their property, then we would still need a temporary construction easement.
Was there any indication from them that they would not grant that?
There was a few that would not grant it. There were a few that objected to that, but, yes.
So in terms of alternate locations, we were ruling out further west than Fifth Street?
No, we could look at Sunset Beach and Ocean Isle Beach. Ocean Isle Beach, because they had previously said they would take it, was sort of the easy answer, but, and plus the comments that they made in the permit. But no, we could place the additional material on Sunset further west, on Sunset further east, or Ocean Isle Beach. So we're willing to investigate those options within this scope. It doesn't necessarily need to be nailed down to only Ocean Isle Beach.
Would we be facing an impact in terms of timeline if we did that?
No, I don't think so. The timeline right now, we would not be facing a timeline restriction.
What about the filing of the variance?
This will not impact the variance. This will be
Has-
after the variance.
Has no impact on the variance?
No impact on the variance. We're moving forward with the variance first before the state sees this, before we make a final decision on where we place the sand. We are filing the variance and we'll have a decision on that, on the variance.
So in terms of any financial impact, would you see any financial impact in terms of putting it on Sunset versus Ocean Isle?
No.
Because you did talk about in your proposal that there was additional, sorry, got my glasses on, that there was additional coordinating efforts related to the Ocean Isle. I'm not quite sure I understand why it would be different than Sunset Beach.
It wouldn't be different. There'd still be additional coordination within Sunset.
But wasn't that always in the plan?
No.
No?
Not for public meetings or for Sunset Beach. If we could talk to the town council, and yes, I mean, I'm very happy to,
Oh, I
if town
thought that this-
council wants to.
Oh, I'm sorry. I thought that this referred to the actual placement of the sand, coordinating those efforts. But you're talking about public meetings and that type of thing.
To get that initial authorization up front that they would accept the sand.
Okay. The requirements for things such as a bathymetric analysis, that's something required by the Army Corps?
By
Or
the-
is that something Moffett and Nichols, or
About the state.
that's state
Stated,
requirement?
yes, that's a state requirement.
Okay. Okay, thank you.
Yes, sir.
Councilman Phillips, Councilman Nern, either one of y'all have anything?
No.
I'm not sure what it is that I'm confused about or concerned about. I guess the biggest thing is we really have not gone through and identified any other place on Sunset Beach that we could put the sand. If we do identify some other place, we still have to go through another sand analysis for that location, and we have to do the permitting or the permissions for any property that we go across temporary with pipes, or if we're going to put sand on somebody's property, including if we go all the way out to Mad Inlet or somewhere along that line, as far as we can.
Yes.
Okay. All right. So those things are all still sort of up in the air. But first, before anything else, I think we just really need a solid commitment from OIB that they're going to play with this, that they will approve it, they'll let us come in, that they have the permits and stuff like that. And then we do our sand analysis and spend money on that.
Yes.
That's an appropriate way to go?
Yes.
Another question? Sorry.
Yes.
For the option of placing it, I think you said on Oak Island, that they would be anxious to receive it, they would pay for it, they would pay for the transport. Did I understand that correctly?
They would be willing to go to discuss that. They have mentioned before that they were interested in discussing that matter, yes.
But I think you said that before we would do that, we had to first see that there wasn't an option placing it within this locale.
Yes. I believe that would be the safest bet. By rule, by state rule, we have to keep beach-compatible sand within the littoral system. Our littoral system, sand system, is from Charlotte Inlet to Mad Inlet, basically South Carolina line.
Now, for the state-owned property on the west end, is that what Councilman Corbett was just mentioning? Provided that we could get the easements to allow the pipes to go there, is that an option? Do we have a problem with the state saying, no, we can't take your sand, or? They're the property owner there,
There,
right?
yes.
So-
I'm not sure. We can definitely make that phone call, being that they are a preserve, I believe, classified as a preserve. I'm not sure if they would accept the sand. Their management practices, I don't know, is the answer to the question. We can make that phone call and inquire, but I do not know.
Just as Councilman Corbett said, I think that the definition of possible alternatives should be at least enumerated, so that if they say in Ocean Isle, well, we thought about it and we're less enthusiastic than we originally thought, and some of the property owners wouldn't agree, that we have an option that we can go to.
Absolutely. I agree.
Okay, thank you.
So basically, we have a lot of ifs,
Yes.
and it could come back and backfire, just like this last one did, where you said that was wrong. It wasn't the town that was wrong, it was y'all's deal about putting it on, correct?
It was, we worked with it. I'm moving forward, I guess we need to first identify,
So in other words, a little bit
Property
better
owners.
planning this time?
yes.
No, I have a comment.
Miss,
Oh, go ahead, Jay.
no.
Councilman?
I seem to recall the council voting for Robert to go ahead with all this. This was something we approved. But my main point here is I hate to see this sand leave Sunset Beach. Sure, we gain sand every year. I can see it on 28th Street where my house is. The walk to the beach is longer, and that's more protection. It's more protection for the whole island. I wish there was some place we could store the sand, and then if we had a terrible storm, which we could, we'd have that sand to re-nourish our beaches. And I just wish we had some place, there were a couple options for storing the sand, but doesn't look like they're going to work out. I really just hate to see that sand leave the beach.
Mr. Mayor,
Go ahead, Councilwoman.
and Councilman, I have placed a notebook at each of your places today. And the reason I've done this is to give you a little bit of history about Tubbs Inlet and some of the permits that have been tried and overturned during the years. I am particularly concerned about placing the sand at Ocean Isle Beach because I'm very concerned that that may cause erosion to Sunset Beach. And that's been the case, and it's been proven a number of times in this notebook that I have before you, and I'd just like to point out a few things. In 2002, the private property owners at the west end of Ocean Isle Beach submitted a permit to dredge Old Sound Creek and also part of that tidal delta that's out there between the two of us, Ocean Isle and Sunset Beach. This was in 2002. The property owners received at that time a FONSI, which was a finding of no significant impact, which they don't do today. However, comments were submitted, and the ultimate outcome of that was that the state required them to do an environmental impact statement because of all the problems that could occur. I'd like to point out a condition of that permit approval, and it says that the permit application approves of the project only if the recommended changes are incorporated. The recommended changes, this is on page 3 in your booklet, by the way. Number 1, long-term maintenance dredging should be addressed and responsible agency for such maintenance should be identified. Consideration of Tubbs Inlet and Jinks Creek maintenance dredging should be addressed and responsible agency for such should be identified. Now, this was a permit to dredge Old Sound Creek, but they're still worried about Jinks Creek with this permit. And then third, spoil areas for unsuitable materials should be provided for before approval of application approval. The people did not identify these people, but the responsible agency, in our case here, the responsible agency would be Sunset Beach, since we're the one asking for the permit. Is that not correct?
Yes.
So if the state were to say, we want a maintenance plan and a project and a maintenance plan and responsible agency identified for Tubbs Inlet, Jinks Creek, that would be Sunset Beach, correct?
Under this permit, yes.
Under this permit. And that is a very costly, into the future, forever project to maintain an inlet. Is that not correct?
Maintaining an inlet could be a very costly project.
Thank you.
Mr. Mayor,
Where does,
if I'm correct, we're not looking to dredge or maintain an inlet for the scope of the dredging project we're talking about for Sunset Beach.
Neither was Old Sound Creek, but they consider Tubbs Inlet in jeopardy because of it. No, we're not dredging Tubbs Inlet, and they were not either. Just some history. Tubbs Inlet was moved, and Tubbs Inlet had a permit. Man & Gore had a permit to move Tubbs Inlet. That permit was granted in 1967. That permit can be found with attachment 1 in your book, and it outlines the condition of that permit. And on one of the exhibits under 1, you will see an aerial photograph dated January the 5th of 1970. You can see that Tubbs Inlet was moved, I don't know how many feet, but at any rate, the dominant water channel prior to the move was Eastern Channel, and prior to the move, Jinks Creek emptied into Eastern Channel. It did not empty into the mouth of the inlet. I want you to know that that's the beginning of the history of this. The canals were built prior to the move of the inlet without a permit. There's a lot of comments in this and a lot of attachments that give you the total history of Tubbs Inlet and how it is what it is today. But I also like to point out that in 1980, Ocean Isle Beach also had a permit to dredge. I'm not sure which area it was, but it was not the inlet. Sunset Beach appealed that to the CRC, and the CRC overturned Ocean Isle's permit to do the dredging back in there. That was in 1980. So we have a history of the state being very concerned about what goes on in that area. I've given each of you a booklet with the evidence that proves what is said in the comments. It's not something Jan Harris made up. It's from the Division of Coastal Management records. And I would hope that each of you would look through this, read it, study it carefully before we make a decision that may come back and harm us. There's every danger here that if we put sand, we do the same thing Old Sound Creek was wanting to do, which was to put sand at the west end of Ocean Isle Beach. We could be damaged, and we could be held responsible for maintaining Tubbs Inlet. So, and Mr. Neal, I believe I gave you this, a copy as well.
Yes, thank you.
And I will not take up any more time.
Thank you, Councilman Corbett.
Well, obviously, we have not had a chance to digest any of this. But the history lesson seemed to stop at 2002, is that correct? Is there anything newer than 2002 in that?
That was the most recent permit.
So we've got 17 years of developments and changes going on that also have an impact to be considered. My initial reaction is that the object of this history lesson is to tell us do not dredge.
And that is not what I'm saying.
Okay, then what are you saying?
I am saying that we need to be cognizant of what can happen to us. I'm saying that all the state agencies have weighed in with their experts on what they will allow us to do with the dredging of South Jinks Creek. In other words, minus 2 feet. I think we need to listen to the experts, and I think this documentation proves there's not just documentation in this booklet, but from scientists as well that weighed in on the case. We
What's
have an
done?
approved permit. We have an approved permit to dredge to minus 2 feet. I personally am terribly worried that we're going to commit this town to a huge bill in the future of maintaining Tubbs Inlet. That is my concern. And I
Because
think
of dredging or because of placing the sand on Ocean Isle?
Well, possibly the dredging too, if we go deeper than what we should go. I'm not saying we shouldn't dredge at all. I'm saying that we have an approved permit to dredge.
But so far, at this point, they said nothing about Tubbs Inlet to our -2. When we submit the variance request for the -5, they'd have another opportunity to make comment about that, correct?
That is correct.
So I think we should wait and see what they say about that, no?
We
If the-
also still have the situation, if we dredge the -2, we're still dredging compatible sand out of the middle of the juncture of Jinks Creek and down towards the canal area, Canal Bay area. And we still have the problem of disposing of that sand. It's still, whether we're going to -2 feet or we're going to -5 feet, we still have the issue of where we're going to put the sand and what's impact that sand would have.
We don't have nearly as much sand.
I have,
Go ahead, Councilman
Oh,
Corbett.
sorry.
I mean,
I have,
Councilman Narn, I'm sorry.
a couple comments. I would have liked to have gone over this information. It would take some time, and I don't mind spending the time doing it, but I'd like to go on over this before we were discussing it here. I find it hard that some don't want any, to believe that some don't want any dredging at all. There's been so many roadblocks put up, and if we don't have a place to put the sand, we can't dredge. So we have a possible place, Ocean Isle Beach, to take the sand, but because of your concern, you don't want to do that. And I think that's just another roadblock to stop dredging. And I'm talking about the whole dredging project. I just think that is the aim of some of the people.
Mr. Mayor,
Sunset Beach doesn't want the sand, or some people don't want the sand. We don't know what's going to happen with Ocean Isle Beach. I don't know where this is going to end. Seems to me like the longer it's held up and the more roadblocks put up, that the cost is going to increase to the point where some people are going to say, "Oh, I don't want the property behind my house dredged." And whether that's true or not, it just seems to me that may be the case.
Mr. Mayor,
1 second. Councilman Narn, Councilman Borman, I apologize. You had asked first, and then you, okay, go ahead.
So I just had a follow-up to what Councilman Nern suggested about finding a different location for the sand as a holding point. Didn't the Army Corps of Engineers say that we could temporarily place the spoils at the time they were talking about, but we could temporarily place the material out on the islands out there?
Spoil Islands.
Yeah, could that be a temporary holding point for the sand here, that should we ever need it here on Sunset Beach, that we could obtain it?
They would let us place it for a 12-month period.
For 12 months, okay, thank you.
Or at least that in their discussion, we've asked for 3 years. They came back and said, how about 1?
Real quick, can I touch on what he just said about the spoil islands? I had a quick question, sorry. If we could use it as a storage facility for any of this, it's only 1 year, right? But do we also have to clean it off before we can use it?
We would have to remove the vegetation.
All right,
Yes.
so that's just amplifying costs, and then even after a 12-month period, we just have to find somewhere to put the sand though, right? So that's just, okay.
Yes. And I'm not sure that there would be some logistics of keeping the compatible or beach material separate from any non-beach material. We couldn't mix the material.
Councilman Harrison.
yes, first of all, I would like to request that this document, it's titled Comments by Brunswick Environmental Action Team, September 22, 2002, be made part of the minutes of this meeting. And can we also get it out on the website?
I don't have a problem with that. I mean, if we include it in the minutes, it'll just go onto the dredging part of the website.
Also, as a response to Councilman Nern, I personally, Jan Harris, Councilwoman, have never been opposed to the dredging of the canals in that area. I have always been in favor of it, but I have always believed in listening to what the state recommends that we do. So, I just want to be sure that everyone understands, I have never opposed the dredging. It should have occurred in 2010. It should not have waited this long.
Anyone else?
Question I have is, your request coming in here today, and it's kind of built in with the next item for the financial amendment, is one, money for doing the survey, and two, money for Moffett and Nichols to continue work.
Yes.
Okay. My thought, given everything we've discussed here, is that we should approve the money to continue work, and we should not approve money for a survey until you've got a solid answer from OIB that they would take it. Without reading this or going any further into the history, I think you should look and see what would be entailed to get the approvals to ship this stuff up to Oak Island, if they would take it. I'm not in a position at all to tell whether putting sand on the west end of OIB would cause erosion on Sunset Beach, or what other damages would happen, and they're nowhere in the process that we've had have we talked about maintaining Tubbs-Inna. We have talked about maintenance dredging and setting up a tax district once we get through this first one to do the maintenance dredging of the areas that we're going to dredge under this project. So I would like to make a motion to authorize Moffett and Nichols to continue working on this and delay the survey until we've got a firm answer on whether Ocean Isle or Oak Island would be the places to take the sand. Can I do this under this one without, because the next one is the budget amendment.
Right, that's why this one came first, because if y'all decided to either push this off, not follow through with or whatever, y'all could amend that part as opposed to approving expenditures first and then deciding whether to go forward or not.
So basically, what you're saying is, this is looking to approve the $20,984, which is the coordinating part, the project coordination part, but not to approve the $35,610, which would be the material placement, correct?
Correct.
Okay.
I second.
All right, we'll call for a vote. Everybody's in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Favor.
Aye.
Unanimous. All right, moving on to the next, we have the dredging project, the financial amendment. Mr. Neal?
I apologize here. I may need help from staff. I see my name on the agenda, but
This is the second part.
This is actually the part about the financial request.
Basically,
But
looking
they
at.
basically
looking
just
at what it
approved
says,
it,
we just
so
done- we just
he-
approved what
there's
he
really
was gonna
nothing
do.
else for him to discuss.
Yes, okay,
So y'all can go
So-
through
yeah,
and,
that's done, the 2984 is
We'll
done.
have a motion. We have to move, we have to,
Need a motion?
we have to.
basically
do-
just approve
Yeah.
for us to come back and do a budget amendment.
Okay. I move that we do a budget amendment to approve the $20,984 for Moffett and Nichols to continue handling project coordination, and we postpone any decision on the survey money.
Second.
Second. All is for?
Aye.
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 Unanimous. Thank you, sir. We
Thank you.
appreciate your time.
Yes, sir, appreciate it.
All right. Next up, we have the Fireman Relief Board appointment.
Mr. Mayor,
Go ahead, Councilman Aaron.
we had 3 good candidates for this, all interviewed well, and I was certainly pleased to see that. This is really is a tough decision to where to go, but I'd like to move to appoint Joseph Kaczynski for a term expiring in January 2022.
Second?
Second.
Did you second?
Yes.
Any discussion?
I
So-
kind of just like to point out that we had 3 very good candidates, and it's good that these candidates step forward. And so choosing one over the other 3 is not, it's hard to come up with an absolute rationale why to do that. But I think Joseph Kaczynski will be in a good position to serve Sunset Beach and represent us well on the Fireman's Relief Fund.
Any other discussion? All is for?
Aye.
Any opposed? Unanimous. All right, moving on to the next thing, we have the Environmental Resource Committee Rules Amendment. Town Administrator Mariano, you have the floor.
Thank you, sir. As we discussed last time, it's a simple change in just removing the ERC from directly involved in the TRC process, Technical Review Committee process, so that instead they can actually fulfill the function of advising the planning board at the planning board's request. Some things will come through that TRC process that, really won't have a bearing on what they need to do, and the logistics of bringing them in, having a full meeting for everybody to be present, seemed complicated. So with, their discussion and our discussion, just simply taking it out and amending their bullet point for that with just when requested through an official motion by the town planning board, is the quick language change. So anytime the town planning board feels that they need their input on something, they'll just make a motion, kick it to their meeting, let them discuss it, and they'll come back with a recommendation. And if that's acceptable to y'all, it was just simple word change.
So basically, it's just this one part here. where
Yeah,
you
just
gotta
that one
agree. That's
part.
the only thing to change.
Yep.
And the Environmental Resource Committee is happy with that?
Well, I wanted to take it before Christmas, just in case, but Mr. Larkin's here as their chairman, if he'd like to comment.
Thank you, Councilman Mayor, and town staff. I like the wording. I think the rest of the ERC appreciated the time you took to make the wording clear. As I read it, though, it is unclear as to who review and make recommendations, who the ERC would make them to. By crossing out to the town planning board, it would then, I think, revert back to another subparagraph which says that our reports go to the town council. And if the planning board asks us to do something, I would suspect it would be more streamlined to give that recommendation directly back to the planning board rather than to go through council to the planning board.
I mean, we can leave that part in, but it would just seem redundant to have the planning board, you're making a recommendation to the planning board as requested by the planning board. That's what this is saying, is that at their request, if they're the ones requesting it, it would go back to them.
Well, as long as in the request it says, make the recommendation directly back to us.
Well, I mean, we can just leave that first part in, it just felt redundant, and
I would think leave it in for clarity.
that works.
All right. Call for a motion. Anybody have a motion?
I make a motion that we adopt the change as recommended,
And amend.
including that we leave in the phrase that they make their recommendation to the town planning board.
Second?
Any more? Anybody need to discuss anything? We good? All right, let's vote. All four?
Aye.
Unanimous. All right, moving on to the next thing, the budget amendment, the land purchase 242 NA 00103. Financial Director, Ms. Tara Drop, you have the floor.
This is the budget amendment for where the council had entered into an offer to purchase the land next door. This isn't an exact number, but we don't have the exact number to the dollar amount, but this will cover everything, and with the timeline, we won't have another council meeting before that all of this takes place. Is there any questions about this budget amendment?
This includes the closing cost?
Not at this time. They have not secured all that information for us. We can float, I mean, it shouldn't be that much in the first place. Anything that's not already in the approved budget from a little bit of overflow where we can make some space, we can always come back later with a budget amendment for that specific. But that's the stuff, that's why you didn't get the budget amendment until today. We were hoping that they'd get the figures to us yesterday, and they didn't. So, like Tara said, you're not gonna have another meeting before all this goes down, so we went ahead and get the bulk of it.
Get as close as we possibly could,
It'll
just to
be a
make
couple
sure.
thousand.
Yeah.
You know, it's not gonna be bank breaking at this point for the closing costs.
Okay.
I
Thank
have a question. We're going to approve the 340,000. Is there, well, I just wonder why it's taken so long to get the paperwork. I don't think it's on our part, but I want to move that we approve this budget amendment with the knowledge that there will be closing costs involved that we'll handle with another budget amendment.
Yeah, and it may be possible that you don't need a budget amendment. If it's like in that department in public infrastructure, if there's like a couple thousand left over at the end of the year and things like that. So it's very possible that we won't have to do another budget amendment. It could just be eaten up in that department. This is going to get us so close that there shouldn't be any further issues with it.
Thank you, Tara.
I second. You did make a motion, right?
Yes.
I second.
Any more discussion? Let's vote. All four?
Aye.
Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. All right, moving on to new business. First up is the ordinance amendment 3050, auxiliary law enforcement personnel. Chief Claymore, you have the floor.
Good morning.
Good morning, sir.
We currently have on our staff several volunteers that fill our records function. They man the window in our lobby, they do filing, records requests, answer telephones, things of that nature. I brought up at a previous council meeting that I wanted to take an old Crown Victoria that we have, mark it as a volunteer patrol vehicle where they could do neighborhood checks, keep checks on vacant houses and the like, similar to what the Brunswick County Sheriff's Office does with their volunteer personnel. Also, I'm looking at addition of auxiliary law enforcement officers here in the next couple of months, which would be a volunteer member of the department that would essentially act as an observer, and it would be someone who primarily has an interest in perhaps going into law enforcement at some point. In discussing this, we found that the ordinance did not cover those two classifications for somebody to be that regularly involved in a patrol vehicle. And we want to be sure by making this amendment that if something were to happen, that volunteer employee is covered by workers' compensation for the town. That's the suggested ordinance change that is before you today.
To be clear, is that all line of duty?
I'm sorry?
This would be to cover injuries for line of duty activities?
Yes, sir.
When they are officially on duty?
Correct. If they're acting on behalf of the town or by instruction from me, engaged in training, patrol functions, or anything else, then that is when they would be covered under workers' compensation, only in that capacity.
So what is the town's liability in a workman's compensation case?
As in,
One of them breaks an arm,
if it's while working for us, then they'll go through the workers' comp process and our workers' comp insurance covers it.
Would there be a change in the premium for that?
We looked it up, there's no change. There's just a state law that requires you have to have it in, as an ordinance to allow for auxiliary and volunteer personnel to be qualified for workers' comp in law enforcement agencies. So we didn't have that before, that's what this is basically housekeeping. But there's no change in our premiums, there's no change in our costs, it's just, you know, right now, if something happens, if the record cabinet fell on our volunteers, they're not covered.
okay?
I mean,
Okay.
it's not
It-
likely, but
Yeah.
I'm just, you know what I'm saying? This is to protect the people that we already have working for us as it is right now.
Can I call for a motion?
No, I have one more question.
Go ahead.
Does this, this isn't for you, Chief, actually, it's for you. Is this similar, does the fire department have a similar type of coverage?
I don't believe so. I believe this is just specifically for law enforcement officers under the North Carolina General Statute 160A-282B. Requires us to have a statement in our ordinances for law enforcement officials.
They're already covered by something else, or by work?
They're,
comp?
they're,
Okay.
they're automatically covered.
Yeah, yeah,
Sorry, I probably should have started with that part.
yeah,
Who's not automatically covered, auxiliary and volunteer law enforcement.
good,
Okay.
all right.
All right, we'll call for a motion.
So moved.
Second,
Second,
Second, oh, sorry.
all is for.
Aye.
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 Thank you, Chief.
Thank you.
I did have a comment. I want to thank all those volunteers that put in their time to assist our police department. You know, law enforcement is close to my heart, and the more people we have helping out, the better we all are. Thank you, Chief.
All right, next up is the deposition of directives for our January the 6th, 2020 meeting. We have the Cabana discussion on there as of yet, and then after that, that's all I see. Do we have anything else right off that needs to be added, or? we're
Should
looking
we, are we gonna get some input from Waste Industries, or for the Waste Industries in terms of changing that schedule, and do we need to?
I'm still waiting. They're still under the assumption that it's gonna be January 20th, but they haven't confirmed that with me because they're still in the process of getting their logistics figured out and getting their materials printed up. And if they can get all that done in enough time to give them advance notice, it'll still be January 20th. But like so many other people, it's the holiday season, he's in and out of the office. They told me they'd be back in touch with me at the beginning of the year.
Okay.
So
Will there be anything that we need to discuss other than just getting the word out to everybody?
That's all we have to do is just, we'll be posting the calendar as soon as we know.
Okay.
They'll be slapping stuff on the cans again, the individual cans like they did last time for the change. That's what they're trying to get printed up is their information to get out to people.
Okay, so we don't need that on this
No.
disposition.
One sec. Anything else?
I have nothing.
Next question then. At what point are we going to get sort of a planning schedule for our budget cycle meetings?
We'll be coming to y'all sometime next month to tell you to look at your calendars. But it's usually the second meeting in January that we throw out some proposed dates. This is what we did last time. However, if you want me to go ahead and get it for the next meeting, I can do that too. It's just, that's gonna depend on y'all's calendars, and since we've got a new council members, one of which is a day job, I didn't know if y'all wanted to have a further discussion before I started throwing out proposed dates on whether how y'all wanted to do it in the first place. Like I said, that's usually the second meeting in January when we start talking about that.
I think we ought to put it on the schedule so that we do talk about it, so you can work out your schedule, we can work out our schedules. Right.
You want it for the first or the second meeting? We can do it the first one as a light meeting.
Let's do it first then.
Budget calendar.
We got one more.
Go ahead, sir.
Do we need to have a discussion in terms of preparing for our community meeting and the procedures that we'll be using and how we will conduct that meeting, just so that it's clear for everybody. And we sort of, at the last meeting, we identified some general topics such as, getting a sense at the community meeting of what the residents think we should be planning for in terms of investments in the future by the town, expenses and things like that, so.
I think that's a good idea.
And if y'all wanna do that, y'all can put it on here
Add
for,
that to the 106.
yeah, I would prefer y'all do it in the first meeting, than the
Yeah.
second one, since it'll be 3 days
It would have
before.
to be, it'd be
Yeah.
right before that meeting.
Yeah, but I mean, that, you don't have to ask me if you wanna do that, y'all can. This is,
That's
the community forum is y'all's meeting. Y'all can do what y'all wanna do with it, and we'll take it from there, when we just, like in February, again, we'll come with a list of everything that was discussed, and y'all can figure out if you wanna proceed, not proceed, kick the can, whatever, but, we can do this however you want to. Lisa's actually got her mic out.
The notice that I've prepared has the 3 topics that you put on it last time: the budgetary items, environmental issues and concerns, and general information and comments
General
from the
info, yes.
citizenry. And Tara has prepared a form that when I send the notice out through the website, and it'll be posted on the website for citizens to prepare for their budget suggestions. So all that is already in the works. And the manner in which you will run that meeting, it is a regular meeting of this council. So it'll run just like these do. The mayor will preside, he'll call people to the mic. The only thing that's different in this community meeting setting is that you will give and take. So to where with public comments now, you don't respond, at the community meeting, you can. You're not required to, but you can if you choose to.
You have that option.
So that's how that meeting will run.
Or y'all can go fun with it. I mean, you can set up little stations that people can go from station to station, have a council member at each station. The way we have been doing it is running like that meeting, but
Yeah. But we also do it, we want it on video, right?
yeah,
YouTube.
that's why you run it like a
Yeah,
regular
So
meeting.
we run it like a regular meeting.
Right.
But I'm just saying, I mean, if y'all wanna break the mold, y'all can. I would prefer you not to do it the one next month, but
At the risk of making it more complicated, is there an opportunity for someone to call in?
we could always, we'd have to be in that room with the conference phone.
I'm just thinking there's a lot of people that are not full-time residents, that are taxpayers. They don't have a vote, so they don't,
I would recommend, though, that we do a different way of doing that. We can put in the notice or something that they're welcome to email
Write-ins
questions in
or
before
something,
the
sure.
meeting, and we can let the mayor address those questions at the meeting, pending time, within the time frame.
okay, that's a good
Because
suggestion.
basically,
That sounds good.
we say intendly 10 to 1, correct?
Yeah, because
What we're looking at, we'll adjust that from when we see how much participation and all we have.
right, if we were doing a call in and having someone man that,
No, I
interrupt
just
it,
wanted to see if we could give them a voice.
Yeah.
If they're not here.
we can encourage email. I know we're going to try to reach out our social media presence in the future. We could encourage someone here with immediate Facebook responses or Twitter responses in the future, but the next meeting, we'll just let people know they can email us their questions, and we'll try to get to them.
Okay.
We'll take precedence on the people that show up, probably, just to be fair for those that
And
actually
that'll-
show up.
And that'll be put on our website, so the citizens that looking at that can
Yeah.
already know that, correct?
And we can, we'll have that form on the website, so they can just fill out the form and shoot it to us as well.
Good deal. All right.
So do we need to discuss this at the next meeting? Everybody comfortable with this?
I think we're
Very
good.
much seen this.
Okay.
So we'll take that off then. That's took care of. Anything else? Everybody good? All right, next up is the public comments. Do we have anything? Go ahead, Mr. Farrell, please. Name and address, please, sir.
John Farrell, 624 Oyster Bay Drive, Sunset Beach. After the last election, I got real interested in the election results and the history of elections in Sunset Beach. And being an engineer and highly analytical, I had to do some research. So, pass those down. John, the other
Thank
way.
you, sir.
Okay. With some very wise direction from Lisa, I contacted the Brunswick County Board of Election and got some excellent information, and I put it together in a chart and a table. I'm not going to discuss it right now. I'll give it to you. You can look at it. I've made some observations of my own on the front page, and if you want to have any further discussion about this, I'd be glad to go through it, either individually or at another meeting. But I just wanted to share it. I thought it might be interesting.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, John.
What was happening in 2009 that they got such a great turnout?
I don't know. I can conjecture. I asked Lisa why the population increased so highly from 2009 to 11, because there was a 33% increase in the population of the town in that time period. So we're scratching our heads about that. But I think personally that it was the addition of Sandpiper Bay and the other communities into the town before 2009 that made 2009 a big election year. But that's just conjecture. I wasn't around here. I don't know. But looking at the election in 2009 and the parties who were elected, I can imagine there was a lot of campaigning and a lot of interest raised in the public about the election, so.
Interesting data, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other questions or comments from public? Nothing? All right, before we go into closed session, just want to wish all the citizens happy holidays. We appreciate you tuning in. We hope that you get more involved next year. We look forward to it. We want to see everybody out. We want to see, if you can't be here in public, watch us on TV, keep us straight. We appreciate it. And also, starting January 3rd, I'll be at Town Hall on Wednesdays from 3 to 5 and on Fridays from 10 to 12. If I can be of assistance to any citizens, please stop by. Other than that, go to closed session.
Real quick, since the attorney's not here, do y'all want to just recess until he shows up and then go into closed session?
We can. Let's call for a recess.
Yeah, just call for recess for the time being.
Okay.
He's here.
Oh, never mind. He's officially 20 minutes earlier than I expected.
I move we go into closed session.
Have a second?
Second.
Got it. Good time. We just gotta come back out.
That would be nice.
We'll stay here.
Well, we can ask everybody to leave.
I think everybody's going
We
in.
can take a short break.
Yeah, let's take a pee break.
Take 5.